Before we get into today's topic, I'd just like to say that this video is proudly sponsored by FS Academy, which produced the very best tutorials for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And indeed, whether you are a professional pilot or just starting out, there's definitely a training package for you. I've done many of them now, and I really do like how they are from real-world pilots and instructors, which give you a very bespoke and very natural way of learning. All the links will be in the description below. I highly recommend that you check them out, and it's why they are sponsoring this video today. Hello folks, welcome to the Cessna 182 in MSFS, and today I'm going to go through my easy top VR tips for really good performance. These things I'm going to show today are things that you can do right now. They're not going to, mean too much tweaking, too much messing around, swapping files and all that kind of thing. It's just common sense, things that you need to ensure to get the best performance out of VR. Because obviously it's a bit of a minefield at the best of times, I realise, Actually, I shouldn't have put my avionics on yet. I need to start this beast. Right, I think we're all good. Clear prop and all that good stuff. She fires into life. This is the Coronado 182, by the way. Nice little aircraft. Not study level or anything like that, but it's decent. That will do. Right, now avionics can come on. And we'll find a runway. So I always say, folks, and forgive me if I sound like a broken record, but some of these things are not sinking in, it seems. Don't go too crazy with your VR settings. It's the most obvious thing anyone can say, but most people are running far too high VR settings. You can't run the same as flat screen. VR is incredibly demanding, and just turn them down. And the first thing I'd recommend is actually going to a place like London City with a complex aircraft and try and get a decent level of performance. I mean, 30 frames per second, believe it or not, is doable for flight simming, unless you're flying really low to the ground and very fast. If you're just doing general aviation flying and even airliner flying, you can get away with 30 frames per second, but ideally you want to be half of the refresh rate of your headset. So 90 hertz would be 45 frames per second. That kind of thing. So that's my first tip. Second tip is downscale the resolution. Pretty confident that most people cannot run the full native resolution of their headsets, maybe not even the Riva G2, depending on your system. It's okay to downscale the resolution. In fact, most of the time you won't notice too much of a drop in image quality, but the frame rate will be hugely different. Like for instance, I sometimes run the Pimax Crystal at 3500 by 4142. It still looks really sharp, really nice, and I'm getting 45 frames per second on the button most of the time. Anyway, let's take off now. Oh, getting a lot of wind here, trying to correct. Whoa! Okay, we're airborne in a fashion. My next tip is lay off the heavy hitters in Microsoft Flight Simulator. That is, oh hello, there's someone there coming into land. That is level of detail. That is a killer. Take it down, guys, to 80-90%. In VR, generally speaking, unless you've got a very high resolution headset, you don't really notice the LOD. I would recommend Auto FPS and Smooth Flight. I do have a video of both of them on the channel. They make a big difference because they adjust the level of detail to a certain FPS number that you pick. For example, 45 frames per second, 90 hertz, 40 frames per second, 80 hertz. Get the idea. Here's another thing as well. A lot of you out there actually don't mind DLSS. I hate it, quite honestly. I'm not a fan at all. I'm a TAA guy. However, it's probably because I've got a very powerful GPU, I can get away with it. But you can run DLSS, but make sure it's in DirectX 12 mode, because you get better performance than in DirectX 11. If you run TAA, run it in DirectX 11. I don't know why that's a thing, but it is. Blame Asabo, not me. Now, if you do run DLSS, then in the OpenXR toolkit, make sure to use either CAS or FSR with sharpening. You can play around with it to your heart's content, but it does make a very nice difference. And actually, in all fairness, for aircraft like this with steam gauges, it does look really good and you'll get a very nice boost in performance. Look at that shower over there. Oh, do you know, this is the kind of weather I love flying in the most. I really do. Now, in terms of the OpenXR toolkit, yes, it's still relevant, still works, and if you can, use foveated rendering, whether it's fixed or with eye tracking. Now, motion reprojection is another thing that is a contentious one. Some people love it, like me, some people hate it. I think a lot of the reason why people hate it is because with motion reprojection, in order for it to work properly, again, you've got to make sure that you're hitting your desired FPS reliably. If you go below it, then motion reprojection will keep kicking in and out, and that will cause even more stutters than if it was off completely. But the great thing about reprojection, especially if you're only using one frame, is that it feels so smooth across the ground and very fluid. So I would recommend that, especially for Quest 3 users. Virtual Desktop, oh my god, it's so good with SSW, which is their sort of version of reprojection. It is superb. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description below of my virtual desktop settings, and yeah, I do rave about VDXR, that is OpenXR integration with virtual desktop. It's brilliant. For those who prefer Link on the Quest 3, well, switch off reprojection, it doesn't work so well. I recommend using the Oculus Tray Tool, if that's what it's called these days, or Meta Tray Tool, because that way you can set a preset and it will remember it every time. Because unfortunately, and this catches a lot of people out, with the Quest 3, the reprojection switches on automatically every time you start. So you need to switch it off manually, and it's a pain in the arse. And if you're using Link, then you really do need to use the Tray Tool so that it switches off automatically every time you start the flights, as long as it's obviously running in the taskbar. Talking of the taskbar, make sure you've got nothing running in your taskbar apart from any add-ons that need access to the sim. Here's another bit of essential advice, actually, and this one requires no technical knowledge at all, just a bit of patience. Because MSFS is a very fickle beast and it runs online, which I've never liked, but I guess that's how it has to be to get all this beautiful scenery, you may find that it will run differently day to day. For example, you may have enjoyed a flight yesterday and everything was running perfect. You go to the sim, feeling all positive, only to realise that the sim is running like a pile of crap. And I get it, guys, it's frustrating. But keep in mind, a lot of these times when that happens, it's down to the servers. So maybe switch server, maybe try offline mode, or maybe just go and do something else. Maybe go and mow the lawn or something. And then the next day, you may find that everything's working fine again. So that is worth noting. So actually, I didn't really mention many other heavy hitters other than LOD. Another one is clouds. You may agree that these clouds look fantastic. Well, these are not on ultra settings. Even with a 4090, I don't run ultra settings, I run high. There's a big difference between high and ultra when it comes to frame rate. Again, up to about 5 to 6 frames per second in VR. That's a big deal. Also, ray march reflections, they're not very optimized, take them off. Switch off ambient occlusion unless you've got a decent computer. I run mine at medium, and that's with a 4090, because it is extremely resource intensive. And shadows, that's another one that is not very well optimized. Another thing I get asked is, how do I start the sim? What is my procedure? Well, what I do is I start the headset first, make sure that's all running. Then I get my motion rig all fired up. Anything that's sort of outside of the sim, get that running and sorted. Then I load MSFS, and I don't jump into VR until I'm sat on the ramp in the actual aircraft. I'd recommend that as well, guys. So I think that's probably enough tips and tricks for now in this video. Most of them are very simple and really just common sense. If you'd like me to do this as a series and show you more complex stuff, then please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching as always. Take care and bye for now.